Welcome back, y'all. So today I'm going to be working on installing the Ford Racing Harmonic balancer. Pretty much got the tools I need, I got a combo kit from AutoZone. I'm going to return it once I'm done because I don't hardly ever use it, but it pretty much has everything, both the puller and the installer in the kit. Not a lot to this, although if you're doing all the other things I've done to this, it would be wise to go ahead and do it then. Because the first thing I got to do is drain the coolant and get the radiator and fan out the way. So as you can see, I've already got the car lifted up enough to get my drain pan underneath the radiator drain, and basically I'm going to be draining the radiator, pulling the fan and radiator, getting those out of the way, getting the serpentine belt off, removing crank pulley. Then I will get to removing the old harmonic balancer and installing the new one. So without further ado, let's get to it. So if you have the SV radiator, but most radiators, your drain valve is going to be down there in the lower passenger corner of the radiator. I'm just going to be loosening that. Let coolant come out. Go ahead and pop the radiator cap off. Let it flow. As you can see, it's coming out nice and slow for now. Let's set that out the way for now. As you see, I'm wearing gloves because one of the things I hate the most getting on my hands is antifreeze. I'd rather get oil on my hands than antifreeze. But let me get this glove off. I'll be back. While that's draining, I'm going to be working on getting the 4 fan bolts undone. They are 7/16, or I think 11mm if you have a metric set, but 7/16 is a little tighter. So I'm going to be working on those. Once I get those out the way, I'll show you the next step on how to get the fan and the shroud out as one. So bear with me just a second. Another quick tip, a couple of these were super tight, so it was turning the water pump pulley as I was trying to break them free. So you can take a screwdriver or anything really and just kind of lock it in like that to keep the fan shaft from turning while you're trying to loosen it. But it's pretty tight with the fan shroud in the way, so it's really just a lot of wrenching, and unfortunately my ratchet is broken, so I'm going to be doing it individually. Once I get the fan undone, I'll show you the next step. Okay, I misspoke earlier. The 11 would actually be a little bit tighter, but it works out better to use a 7/16 anyway, because you want a little wiggle room getting the, because it's so tight in there. But next, go ahead and take your 11mm socket, undo your 2 top fan shroud bolts, disconnect if you have the low coolant sensor, disconnect that. Also go ahead and pop off your degas bottle from the radiator. Once you do all that, you will pop this off. It may take a little wiggling. As you can see, mine's already wiggling. You pop that off and you just pull the shroud and the fan out as one. So just 1 second. Okay, so bear in mind, the degas bottle is not drained yet all the way, but so I'm going to pop this off so the fan itself is loose. Now, it's just clipped in the bottom, so you just got to pop it up. Heard the clips fall. Now, you gotta be careful because there's not a lot of room, but pull them out together. And since the degas bottle's not empty, you want to keep it upright. Okay. Don't forget to get your clips, which there's one right there. Put those back on here in a little bit. Find the other one. Oh, I can't reach it. So next is getting the radiator hoses disconnected. Of course, it's still got to drain some more. Get the radiator hoses disconnected, then two support brackets, and then the radiator comes out the same way. So I'm gonna wait on this to drain some more, and then I'll be back. All right, so both radiator hoses are disconnected. If you're using the LMR supplied SVE clamps, it's a 9/32 socket, or you could, if you hate yourself, you could use a flathead screwdriver. Next, you gotta get the two radiator support brackets undone, and I believe those are 13s, which they are. So I'm gonna get those undone real quick, and then I'll be right back. The bolts for the radiator support brackets are out. Just set the brackets off to the side, and this thing just comes on out. Just be careful, because there is still going to be coolant left in it, so it's going to leak a little bit. So what I will do is I will set it back at an angle like this, preferably in the shade so it doesn't get too hot. Okay. So now, the next thing to do is, while the serpentine belt's still in, I'm going to start undoing I'm going to break the 4 bolts loose for the crank pulley. I got to remember which size hex bit that is. So I think it's this one. Let me just verify. Yep, okay, so it is. If you're using the LMR underdrive pulley set, it's a, what are we looking at here? An 8 on the hex. I still have my factory crank bolts, and I think they are 14. So if you still had the factory crank pulley, that's what you would use. Let me just verify. It's a 15 and it's loose. 15 might work for you. 11/16 also, or 9/16 also work if you have if you're using the factory bolts for the factory crank pulley. But anyway, while the belt is still on to help keep it still, keep the engine from turning, I'm gonna break these loose, and then I'll go ahead and, after that it really doesn't matter, but remove the belt. That way it's not putting tension on the pulley. So bear with me. To get the belt off, you need an 18 millimeter. I'm just using my big torque wrench because it gives me a little bit more leverage, but just go ahead on and loosen the tensioner, and there you go. Belt comes off. If you don't know how your belt's supposed to be routed, I would recommend taking a picture before you start that. Because depending on what combination, AC delete, power steering delete, EGR, or smog pump delete, whatever, there's 3 or 4 different combinations of belt alignment. But that's off. So now I'm just going to run all 4 of these crank pulley bolts off, get the crank pulley off, and I'll move from there. Okay, crank pulley's off. I've got the harmonic balancer bolt soaking in penetrating oil. To get it out, you need either a 24 or 15/16 socket, and either a breaker bar or an impact. I don't know if my impact will break it loose. I'm going to try. If not, I'll just use my big torque wrench as a breaker bar. So anyway, I'm going to let it soak. Once I get it busted loose, I will return. Okay, so here's the harmonic balancer bolt. Zipped right off with my impact. One thing, if you don't have an impact, you could use something like a big breaker bar, like I was going to do. However, I would recommend getting some extra crank pulley bolts and do like I was showing with the fan, so you can pry it or hold it, you know, kind of lock it in place, because if you just try and turn it, you're just going to end up turning the motor. So that's out. Next step will be setting up the harmonic balancer puller and get started with that. So let me get that set and I'll show you what's up. So the puller tool that I got came with, well, it looks different than most of them, but you're going to select your 2" by 3/8 coarse thread bolts. Sorry if the glare is bad, it's just kind of hard to set this up. Of course, you need your centering adapter. You really only need 2 of these because there's 4. That's basically works. So if you had 3 crank pulley bolts on your harmonic balancer, you could do 3. But since we have 4 on the Fox bodies, you only use 2. So it's going to go in and both of those bolt to where the crank pulley bolted. We'll go from there. So hold on 1 second. Okay, so it's pretty much set up like this. And what you're going to do is you're going to tighten this one while holding that one still, and they'll slowly suck the harmonic balancer out. So I'm going to work on that. It's kind of hard to show me doing that and get it on camera. So let me show you what it looks like once it's out. Okay, so how I did this, I just took a ratchet with a 5" socket and a crescent wrench to hold this and just tightened, and it came right out. It's actually not a good sign how easy that came out, which I'm not surprised. I already kind of had a feeling it was going bad. But anyway, that's the old one. Here's the new one. So I'm going to get this greased up and get some silicone on the keyway of the crank, which, find the keyway, it's right there, and go from there. So give me a second. Plenty of grease on here. I'm going to slide this on, get it up on there as far as I can, and then I'll be back and get the tool set up so it's ready to go. So instead of the centering tool, when you're removing it, you want to get your thread adapter to thread into the crank, and instead of the this big nut pulling against that and that's flipped around, that's flipped around that way now, and you're going to be pushing. So give me a second to get this set up and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Now, that's like that. I'm just going to be using my ratchet to hold the shaft still while I use my wrench to tighten that collar, and that'll work the harmonic balancer on to the crankshaft. So this is going to be tedious, and I need both hands, so y'all just wait there and I'll be back. Okay, I should have done this beforehand, but I'm going to go ahead and replace the timing marker. It's just 2 13mm bolts. I'm going to zip those off real quick, get the new one on, and that'll be all she wrote on that. Hang on. These are 2 different lengths. Okay, they go in just like that. So set them in here real quick. So the long one, as you can see, that's how the timing marker goes. So let me get these set in there and we'll move on. So the next step, get your crank bolt get it started. I'm gonna get my impact and zip it up in there real quick. Then I'll torque it once it's tight. Okay. Now, let me get my torque wrench and all that. Get it torqued down to get that so I got a hand free. Hold on 1 second. Okay, so I'm turning the motor. So what I'm gonna do is get two of my old crank bolts, get something to hold the crank from turning, then I'll torque it down. So wait one. Torque down. Next, I'm gonna turn the motor over where I can see the timing marks, because I forgot to paint the timing marks before I put it on. I actually think they're down below now. I might just get underneath it and do it. I'm going to turn it a little bit more, but let me show you what that looks like once I'm done. Okay, these aren't the prettiest timing marks. They're a little thick, but I've got the 20 marked, the 10, I've got it roughly around 14, and then 8, just so I know if I'm getting on the slow side. They're going to be perfectly exact because those are thick lines, but it'll get the job done. So now that that's done, what's left to do is get her put back together. So I will go ahead and get the crank pulley on first, then I'll do the water pump pulley, and then we get the belt on, get the radiator back in, hoses connected, fan and shroud back in. That's pretty much it. So hang on. All right, the crank pulley's in there. Got the water pump pulley started with 1 bolt to keep it straight. May have to back it out some more. So basically the slots in the clutch fan, it can slide in there and pop on the shaft of the water pump. All right, so next will be the radiator. Get that in, get that mounted, and we'll get the fan and shroud in. Once that's in there, I can hold that tight. That's pretty much all there is. Actually, second thought, let me go ahead and get the belt on there. It may not want to sit right, but I won't be able to get the belt on once I get the fan belt in. So let me go ahead and do that. Okay, fan belt's on. I've got the radiator in. Lower hose is put on there for now. It's not clamped. Got the radiator supports on. They're not tight. I won't tighten these until I get the fan on there and get everything adjusted. So really, I guess next I'm going to tighten that clamp, get this one done, and more or less get pretty close here. 30 seconds. Okay, I gotta get the bottom one, which is kind of hard to show, but you kind of get the idea. Okay. I got to get these clips back in below the radiator. So let me do that and I'll be back. Those little clips were more of a chore this time than they were the first time, for some reason. But next step is to get the fan shroud in, and which should be 4 bolts and 2 for the shroud, and then pretty much be putting coolant in it. So hang on. Okay, so it's pretty much a wrap. Fans in, degas bottles hooked up, low coolant sensors hooked up. There's really not much else to do but put coolant in it and get her going. One tip made it a little bit easier was go ahead and once you have the fan started, take the serpentine belt loose, and I just used the same trick, you know, prying 2 bolt heads, holding it so the water pump would stay still while I tightened them, and I was able to just rotate the water pump, you know, around so that I could get all 4 tight. And then plus that it made it easier without tension on the pulley from the belt. So once I got it tight, put the belt back on. That's pretty much it. And all I gotta do, yeah, put coolant in her. I can't burp the system, so I'm not even gonna put coolant in it yet because, well, I think my coil wire has gone bad. It's pretty loose. It just pops right off. I don't think it's making a good contact. So I can't really burp it yet. I'm just gonna leave it like it is for now. Probably put the cap at least back on it to cover up the hole so nothing gets in there. Yeah, so that's pretty much another project down. Next up I'll probably be doing is replacing the plug wires so I can get some spark, and I'll set the base timing. So until next time, yeah, like, share, and subscribe, and I'll be back.